Okay, it's Robert Eagleson here with the Hook and Hackle Club Calgary, and today I am doing a web wing caddis. So what strikes me about this fly, first of all, is the realistic look. I like the horns out the front. Lots and lots of movement from the CDC here, and the web wing just gives it a little bit more of a profile than you might expect with a elk hair caddis. So we'll just run through the materials. First of all, the horns, which I think kind of make this fly, come from the vane side, so the long side of a goose quill. So on the right hand side here, with on this feather anyway, are the biots. We're using the long side here, the vane side, to make those horns. Hook, standard dry fly hook, size 12. Underneath I've got brown superfine dubbing. Underwing is deer hair. The overwing is something called web wing. So the color I'm using in this fly is a mottled tan. So it's web wing. I think you can find this stuff a lot of places. It's fairly tough, almost like a screen door. So I'm not sure I would cut it out with a cutter. Let's go through the colors here first. I use this in the mottled tan and the mottled brown, but it comes in a whole bunch of colors: white, light dun, medium dun, black tan, hopper yellow, brown, olive, mottled tan, mottled light dun, mottled medium dun, mottled hopper yellow, and mottled brown. So, as I was saying, it's built almost like a screen door, so it's a little bit tough on your cutters. If you're artistic, you can just fold this stuff and cut it out into a caddis wing shape. If you're not that artistic, find yourself a pair of these caddis wing burners. Take your material, fold it in half. Don't burn this stuff, but just take your scissors and then use that cutter as a pattern to cut out your wing. So when you're done, you'll have little wings folded in half. There's the light tan, and this is the mottled brown. So as I mentioned, those are the two colors I use the most. One we're doing here is the mottled tan. Oh, I didn't mention the legs here. This is a CDC puff. And I'm using dark natural CDC puff for the legs. Okay, so standard dry fly, size 12. I'm just going to mount that in my vise. Very important here too. I'm using a 70 denier thread, and at least if you tie this fly like I'm tying it, you can't use a round thread. It has to be a flat thread. Okay, so I mentioned we're going to find my goose, and we're just going to take my scissors and we're going to separate two veins off of there, clip them off. I got three. I got to separate one more out of there. Okay, so I've got my my horns. I'm just going to kind of measure, and I want to leave at least one eye length behind my eye there. And then I'm just going to tie that right down back to the bend, and I'm not going to separate those horns. All right, my dubbing, I'm using Superfine brown. I really like Superfine dubbing. It has a floatant built into it, and it's such an easy dubbing to use. So I want my body pretty heavy on the back, but I also want this dubbed quite loose. I want it to trap a lot of air. So quite thick, but quite loose on the back. And then I will just make my taper somewhat smaller coming forward. Just a touch more here. Alright, right in about there. Now, need my underwing, so I'm taking some deer hair here, and I'm going to clip off just a bit, so 30 hairs maybe. So I've got my hair here. I'm just going to use my comb out all the under fur. Then I'm going to drop it in a stacker. Give that a few whacks. Then I'm going to hold it up and measure so those tips come just beyond the bend a bit there. And then I'm just going to cut those off. And then I will take my wing that I have made ahead of time, and I will just slide that on. A few snug wraps, and then I'm just going to clip my excess here. Alright, now what I want to do is spin my thread until that thread gets pretty flat. And once it's flat then, and that's why you can't use round thread here, so take your bodkin and stab it into the middle of that thread. So I find it easier if I lay it on my thumbnail. I'm just going to split that thread. Then I'm going to take a CDC puff, and I will just lay, depending on how full your puffs are. But this is a pretty full one, so I'm just going to lay that puff in there. And then I will just take my scissors and cut the quill end of that off. I'm just going to pinch at the bottom, and I'm going to spin my thread. And then when I let go of the thread, I get a nice dubbing loop with the CDC in it. And I will dub my legs. Then I will find my whip finisher, and I'll see if I can pull that back. And I will just try to dub or whip finish in front of those legs. Clip my thread, and then I will just grab my bodkin again, and I'll see if I can separate those two horns. So there we have it, the web wing caddis. So good profile. Deer hair will help it float a little bit, but that superfine dubbing there is going to make it float pretty well. The horns give it a realistic look, and the CDC puff legs there just give it all kinds of movement. So there you go, web wing caddis. I quite like this fly, especially for slack water. Would work well in lakes, but slack water in rivers and streams. Yeah, nice fly. Thanks for watching. Thanks. Bye.